What is up, everyone? I hope you are doing fantastic on this Thursday, March 26th, 2020. This is Raphael Garcia here for episode number 52 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Before I get into our content for today, as always, I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to me talk about pro wrestling, some things that are going on in the industry. You can always find me at rgarcia_sports, where I'm talking, again, wrestling, I'm talking mixed martial arts, combat sports, everything sports basically, politics and all the things in between. You can check out MMAratings.net for our main platform of content. Go there to rate the fights and read a lot of our written work that's really being covered by Adam Martin lately. You can also catch us on all the major podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, and you can also catch this show at YouTube at MMA Ratings. And please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and let us know what you're thinking about our content whenever you can. So tonight I'm going to be talking about three topics. I'm usually talking about AEW content and WWE content from the week. I also will be talking about Dark Side of the Ring. It's a two-part documentary that a lot of people have been talking about this week. It was about Chris Benoit, and this was some very, very, very powerful content that I enjoyed from start to finish. And I think that it's almost mandatory viewing for anyone who considers themselves a wrestling fan, and for those who know the Chris Benoit story and those who don't. It's almost mandatory viewing, and I think that it would benefit everybody to go back and watch it. And we're gonna get to that. That'll be the third topic. But tonight I'm going to start out with talking about AEW Dynamite from this past Wednesday, going through that show, hitting some highlights on it. I think this was a good show. AEW continues to do the empty arena shows well, and they're doing it well. I think really did influence WWE to step their game up, which they've done, and their past week of content has been a lot better. We'll be talking about that in a minute, but AEW continued to excel in this space, and it shows in the ratings area as they ended up this week with 819,000 viewers. That's a little bit down from the 932 last week, but it was still a very, very good show with some good points, some bad points. We'll talk about not necessarily bad points, but points that I'm just not here for. And we're going to talk about that as well. So let's go ahead and dive into this content and looking at AEW Dynamite. So the first thing so Tony Schiavone was on the headset today, or yesterday, along with Kenny Omega and Cody, and I think that that was a pretty good touch, especially seeing how Cody had to go back after he got done with his match, and he was the opening match against Jimmy Havoc. Now, I'm just not a Jimmy Havoc guy, and it's not necessarily him per se. That deathmatch style, I'm just not here for. In professional wrestling, it's just not my thing. But this match was good because it took Havoc style and paired it interestingly against Cody's, basically fundamental wrestling style. And I flipped back and forth between this match. Cody is great when it comes to in-ring storytelling, but his matches that don't involve that long-term storytelling don't have the same weight to me. I don't want to watch them as much. Like, you want to watch him fight MJF because it has that weight behind it. You want to watch him fight Wardlow because it has that weight behind it. Same thing with Dustin. Same thing with every match that he's been in. This match doesn't necessarily carry that. It didn't carry that, understandably. Every match isn't going to carry that. But when he's not involved in the story at that level, it makes me want to watch him less. And that's a difference for me because I can watch any Kenny Omega match. I can watch any match with Pac, any match with Ricochet, any match with Seth Rollins. I can watch him have any match. It doesn't necessarily have to have the story behind it because I know that they're going to excel in the ring. Cody isn't that type of wrestler. He's a story-based wrestler, and I think that that serves him best. And the fact that this match didn't have that story element behind it, in my opinion, it hurt the match. But it was still good. They still did a good job back and forth throughout the action, and it led into a taped promo from Jake Roberts with Lance Archer. Now that storyline I'm interested in, and it looks like Lance Archer will have his first match next week. And I'm looking forward to that because I don't remember a lot of him as Lance Hoyt. I remember the name, but I don't remember him so much. So I'm looking to see what he does in AEW as Lance Archer. I know what he did in New Japan. I saw a lot of his content out there, but I think having him and Roberts paired together and over here in AEW, that brings a breath of fresh air from the heels standpoint to this organization, and I can't wait to see what that looks like. Then we got Darby Allin and Kip Sabian. Again, this was a great match. I was flipping back and forth to NXT as well because in my eyes, Darby Allin is a star already. I know what I'm going to get from him. He's a future champion. If he doesn't have that title in maybe the next 1 to 2 years at some point in time, and somebody else, we're going to talk about somebody he should be feuding with around that title as well. But I think that he is going to be a champion in the next 1 to 2 years. AEW is doing a fantastic job raising him up, elevating him, making him seem important, making him feel important every time he's in the ring. He got the win against Sabian. Sabian looks good as well too, and I liked how Cody was putting them both over during this match. I think Kip can be a good mid card individual. If there's like when they do develop their mid card title, I think he's someone that will be in the argument for that. But Darby Allin, he's that guy right now. He's someone to watch. They have the rocket strapped to him. I think they should strap the rocket to him, and I'll be interested in seeing how they continue to elevate him. Let's see what that looks like next year. I mean, he may be someone that could be a great foil for Moxley later on in the year. They already did their match together earlier, where Moxley won, but maybe this is something that we can revisit and get back around to because Darby Allin is definitely a star that AEW is building. We also got Jake Hager. I'm not here for it at all. I will say though that they are pushing towards the angle with Jake Hager and John Moxley, which is okay. It's a little thing for Moxley to do in between storylines. So I guess that's that. It keeps him busy, keeps the title on air. But I am not here for Jake Hager in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely not. We also got Brody Lee's first match. He faced off against QT Marshall, and I want to see Brody Lee succeed. I want to see him do well in AEW, especially with how WWE treated him towards the end. The shots at Vince McMahon, where they exalted one is kind of a playoff of Vince. I get it. It's funny. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's there are some pieces of it that are funny. But how long will it remain funny is my question. How much? Like, I'm sure that there's mounds and mounds of content to joke about when it comes to Vince, especially with Chris there, who has a very one-to-one relationship with Vince. He probably has mounds of stories to tell. But at what point do we get who the Exalted One is within the Dark Order? When do we get that storyline? Because I think that is more important, and that's what I want to see more of. I'm like kind of on the fence about Brody Lee right now. I think he's going to do great. I want to see him do great, but this storyline for me, I don't think it can be just about Brody Lee taking shots at Vince McMahon because Vince McMahon didn't have faith in him. Clearly, there's going to be more to that, but I'm not sure what that more to that is going to look like over the extended period of time. So that brings us to the main event match of the night, not the main event segment, main event match between Sammy Guevara and Kenny Omega for the Triple A Mega title, which Kenny Omega currently carries. And as I said about Darby Allin a second ago, where I think he's going to be a champion in the future, I feel the same way about Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara is fucking hilarious, and he is hilarious in every way, shape, and form. I think he is going to learn a whole hell of a lot from Chris Jericho. You see the way Chris Jericho talks about him on his podcast. He talks about him a lot lately on a show, and I just think Sammy Guevara is going to be that guy at some point in time. He's going to be a great babyface. I would expect to see him and Jericho have some type of program, maybe next year, and maybe a little bit longer than that. But they're going to have some type of program with Sammy as the face, and he's going to show, and people are going to eat it up. The people are going to eat it the fuck up, and I cannot wait for that. This was a great match. They hit all of the big spots that you would expect in a Kenny Omega match. He gets the win with the one-winged angel. My favorite moment was, obviously it's going to be everyone's favorite moment out of this match, when Sammy started to make out with the drawing of Brandy, and her face after that is going to be the wrestling meme of 2020 easily. I don't know how anyone's going to top that, because that was perfect. Her facial expressions were perfect. It's hilarious, and the camera caught it fantastic. I already have it saved in my phone, and I've used it like 3 times already since yesterday. It's going to be great. So this was a good match to me. There was nothing really to detract from that. It was a typical Kenny Omega match, but that doesn't mean it's bad in any way, shape, or form. We got the final segment, which was Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho. And you know what, I may actually need to go back and rewatch this segment because right now I'm kind of 50-50 on it. And the reason being is because Chris Jericho's hilarious to me. I love the way he shoots straight on just about anything, even when it's something as over the top as Matt Hardy. You have Matt Hardy doing all of his shtick, doing all of his broken stuff, and I understand why people enjoy it. I understand why people laugh at that, why that was so creative when it was 2016, and why it's still so creative. It's just so different in professional wrestling now. But I am not the target audience for that. I like my wrestling to be a little bit more serious, and the magical teleporting around the ring. I see why people enjoy that just because, like I said, because it's funny, because it's interesting to watch. But that's not going to hold my attention for an extended period of time. I saw someone tweeting about it today about how AEW continues to rely on their tongue-in-cheek jokes, their inner what's that word? Their inner jokes or whatever it is, like the jokes they have amongst inside jokes, and how that's not going to welcome in new fans. And I can kind of see that. Matt Hardy's going to bring a lot to the AEW table. I think he's going to bring more to the table from a backstage creative standpoint. I don't need to see him so much in main event segments. That's just my opinion. But this, if the crowd was there, the crowd would have been massively hot for him. They would have been screaming delete. They would have been screaming obsolete. They'd have been screaming wonderful. They would have been doing all of his laughs. Like they would have been into it. I am not a part of that group, but I get why he is so popular. I am on the Jericho side of this. Jericho being the straight man and being hilarious while he's doing it. He cut a promo on Vanguard One, which was hilarious. Today he followed it up with a promo on a Roomba as if he thinks the machines are out to get him. It's hilarious. So I think this is a good angle for both of those guys. It keeps them active and keeps them out of the way from detracting from anyone else on the roster from a young standpoint. They're not squashing anybody. So like this isn't WWE where like the younger guys are being fed to the older guys left and right. This is a little bit different, and I'm here for that. I wonder what they're going to do next. They haven't said when Blood and Guts is going to happen because we don't know. We don't know when things are going to get back to normal for the professional wrestling industry and the rest of the world in general. But that's going to be an interesting match to see, and I'm curious to see how they keep this going from now until then. Overall, AEW was a really solid show, and I like how they continue to remain creative in a time where you don't know what you're going to get week in from week out. I like how they're staying on TV, the way they're keeping their numbers down. I hope that it stays healthy for everyone. I'm enjoying the content, but as always, people's safety comes first. So I hope it remains safe for everyone. I hope everyone still remains healthy in the long run. So let's move on and let's move over to WWE. And we'll talk about all the content Monday Night Raw and NXT. So Monday Night Raw was a lot better this week than it was the week before, and that's because they took the time to pay attention to more stuff. So they paid attention and they presented different stuff to the viewing audience. I want to start off with the quote unquote old matches that they showed. So they gave us two great matches. They gave us Charlotte versus Asuka. I think that was WrestleMania 34. They gave us that match. And then they also gave us Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns versus John Cena from Royal Rumble in 2015. If they are going to show us good matches, if they're going to show us old matches, show us the great old matches. Like they have decades upon decades upon decades upon decades of content. I don't need to see Elimination Chamber from 2 weeks ago. I don't need to see the Royal Rumble from 2 months ago. Show me stuff from years back. Show me if they want to embrace the Attitude Era so much. Okay, no problem. Next month or next week, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, the submission match from Survivor Series a couple years back, or SummerSlam, excuse me. That's not a couple years back. It's almost 20 years ago. Show me that. Show me Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating Shawn Michaels for the first title. If you want to embrace the Attitude Era so much, show me that. Show me The Rock versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Show me that. Show me the matches from back in the day They don't even have to be that old. Those matches are 20 plus years old. They can show me stuff from 5 years ago that was great. Show me the Bailey versus Sasha match from Brooklyn Takeover. Show me that. Like they have so much different content that they could show that people would get excited to see. If they dropped hey, we're gonna show two great classic matches on Raw this coming Monday, and one of them is Sasha versus Bailey. I guarantee you people will tune in to watch that because a lot of people haven't seen it. A lot of people weren't watching NXT back then. I get it. I understand it. I guarantee you people will stop and they will turn into that. I guarantee you. They have so much content. Just show us the good stuff. Show me, like I'm screaming like I'm Jerry Maguire. Show me the good shit. WrestleMania 30 was on ESPN over the weekend, and that joint drew 839,000 viewers. That's more than AEW, and that's more than NXT this week. So there's clearly a demographic that's willing to watch good classic wrestling, and I'm here for it. On Monday Night Raw, we got Andrade and Angel Garza tagging against Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. Now, you knew that Garza and Andrade were going to win this match simply because they have the tag team title match coming up at WrestleMania, which is now being taped. But I'm here for Cedric and Ricochet being a team because if WWE isn't going to do anything with them as individual stars, put them together as a team, let them go to SmackDown, let them go to NXT, let them tear it the fuck up. Because right now there's an embarrassment on how they're being used. In the last few weeks, we've seen them both get jobbed out to Riddick Moss and both have matches on main event like it's nothing. And they're both so much better than that. And it's sad to see these guys get used that way. But Andrade and Garza get the win. They botched the pin and the count the pinfall there, and I wonder if Cedric was supposed to kick out. It looked like he was. The ref was expecting him to kick out, but Cedric got blasted with that elbow, and I think he was actually groggy. I haven't heard anything since Monday, but I haven't really looked to be honest either. But I wonder if he was really hurt there. We got a segment with R-Truth and Riddick Moss, which was hilarious. I had seen this on Twitter before, so it was hilarious. Where R-Truth wins the 24/7 title back, and he tells him to go back to the NFL and calls him Randy Moss. So too funny. Like that's funny to me. The delete, obsolete stuff isn't funny to me right now. And it was fun. And Riddick Moss jumps up and says, "I'm Riddick Moss, not Randy Moss." So like that stuff made me laugh. We had Shayna and Becky. Charlie Caruso interviewed Shayna for a couple minutes before Becky blasted her with the chair. Okay, that was a good segment there. I liked how Shayna was looking at Caruso and making her feel really uncomfortable. That was just fantastic. Aleister Black versus Leon. Now, this was the same exact match that they put on main event. And some people were upset about that. Me, I wasn't. I wonder why they put the same exact match. For a second there, it almost looked like they just showed the taped match. They didn't even redo it, but they actually redid the same match from start to finish. Same moments, same beats, same finish, same two-minute match, whatever it was. It was a little weird, but I like Leon Ruff just from watching him sell that damn black mask. So it is what it is. Aleister Black is now facing Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania, and I'm kind of sad about that because clearly Lashley's going to take the L there, and this is, I mean, I think, man, they're missing the boat on Bobby Lashley. I've been writing about it. I've been saying it clear as day. They're missing the boat about that guy. And he should have been someone that should have been feuding with Brock Lesnar. I'm so surprised that they have not done that in any way, shape, or form. It should have been Lashley at some point. It should have been all out brawl, but they just haven't gotten there yet, and I don't think they ever will. What else did we get? We got a great moment with Seth Rollins and KO, and this was a fantastic promo by Seth Rollins because the good thing about heels in movies oftentimes is that they come off heels with superiority complexes. They come off as if clearly they think that they're better than everyone else, but if you listen to their story, just a hint of it is true. Just a hint of it is true enough that you can't say they're 100% wrong. Think about Killmonger in Black Panther. We joke that and say that Killmonger was right. We know he wasn't. But there's still a little bit in him that's like, maybe he's not as bad as we thought he was, maybe a little bit. But in reality, that's not the case. But this was a great segment. And then it was followed up by another fantastic promo by Randy Orton. So, we ended the show with some great promos and some great content there that was enjoyable from start to finish. I really enjoyed Monday Night Raw this past week. So let's move on over to NXT, which was on Wednesday. They increased from last week to 669,000 viewers. And, last week they did mainly a video based, promo based recap show, which a lot of people weren't here to watch. And I understand that. I wasn't one of, I damn sure didn't watch that. This event last night had many more matches. And they also announced that the takeover matches that were scheduled for NXT Takeover, which is no longer going to happen, will now happen on NXT over the next few weeks. So I'm here for that. It allows them to tape those matches and allows them to present those matches in their best form. So let's see what that looks like, and I'm looking forward to some of that content. We got Austin Theory versus Tyler Breeze. This was a decent match, in my opinion. I like how they closed the storyline between Breeze and Theory that started last week with that segment. And was that 2 weeks ago? May have been 2 weeks ago. I didn't watch NXT last week. But I like how they kind of kept that segment going. And now they're kind of moving into an angle where we are talking about Theory and his overconfidence, which is a problem. And I get that. And let's see where they go with that. Let's see if they continue to build upon that, and let's see if they can do that a little different as well too. I think that's going to be an interesting storyline for Theory because clearly they are willing to invest in him. We got Killian Dane versus Tehuti Miles. No, I liked Alex Palowski's joke about Miles saying he reminded him of one of the No Limit Soldiers. That was hilarious to me. Cameron Grimes versus Tony Nese. This was another decent match. I don't think it was bad at all. Grimes goes over. I'm not too interested in him. I always laugh when they say where he's from Burlington, North Carolina. I went to college out that way, so I know that people out there do kind of look like him. So it is what it is. But he gets a win over Tony Nese. It helps him look strong because he defeated a former champion who's a cruiserweight, but still by the same size. So let's see if that means I doubt he's moving over to the cruiserweight division, but I do see him maybe becoming NXT North American champion sometime in the future. Then we got the moment that I enjoyed the most. Aaliyah is out there. She is supposed to face Xia Li, who is in the backstage doing her best impression of crying because she's doing her Nancy Kerrigan impression. And out comes Io Shirai. Now, I got hyped because I thought that I didn't know Io was hurt. I thought she was just at home because she wanted to leave. I remember that storyline was coming up. Not that storyline, but that was being talked about from a wrestling Twitter or wrestling community space where she was upset with her booking and she wanted out, which would have made sense. But she was hurt. I'm glad she's back and she stomps Aaliyah's ass to get into the ladder match. I hope she wins. I hope she becomes champion. I just don't see them doing it. They do not want to put that title on women of color. I mean, she should have held the belt by now. Bianca Belair should have held that title by now. Belair's not even in the ladder match. So, that's just bullshit. But I'm kind of slightly also okay with that, though, because that means that they can't job Belair out again and keep that belt off of her. So let's see how she comes back and what happens, or if she even gets called up after WrestleMania. We also got Dominik Dijakovic, Damian Priest challenging Keith Lee for the NXT North American title. Okay, this is going to be three big men beating the hell out of each other, doing some big spots. I really hope they don't take that belt off of Lee, especially not this soon. I think he's someone that could be a champion for an extended period of time. I'm going to talk about him in another segment as well. But I am afraid that they're going to take that belt off him and put it on Dijakovic, and this is how they're going to make that happen. I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll see. They don't like black men being single champions for an extended period of time, singles champions for an extended period of time. So let's see what happens. We got Candice LeRae versus Kaden Carter. I want to see more of Kaden Carter. She has such an original look. To me, she stands out from a lot of the women on the roster. I understand why Candice got the win here. And if you didn't see it, there's an interesting promo by Candice after the match where she's being asked about Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, and I like how she deflected it. She's like, she doesn't want to talk about that anymore. She wants to talk about her career, and fucking here for that because I'm tired of her being booked as nothing more than Johnny Gargano's wife. So let's see her get some shine as an individual star here. I could see her even winning the ladder match, to be honest. She's a great babyface, and she could be a fantastic babyface to Rhea Ripley being a bigger, stronger woman. I think with Ripley being such a face right now, I doubt that they would have a face versus face matchup. That's why I'm kind of leaning towards Io winning, but Dakota Kai is actually in the match as well. Well, Dakota Kai's not in the match, excuse me. She's in the gauntlet match where there's 6 women for an opportunity to get back into the match. So it's Kaden Carter, Dakota Kai, Xia Li, Aaliyah, um, Shotzi Blackheart. I think that's it. That may be it. But it's those 5 individuals having a gauntlet match to see who gets the last spot in the ladder match. And I think that Dakota's going to win that because it's either going to be her or Io. So then we get Matt Riddle versus Roderick Strong. This was a fantastic match, great back and forth. You know, these 2 guys are going to not give you a good match. And then we get Malcolm Bivens coming out with 2 big Middle Eastern guys. I don't know their names, and I apologize, I don't know their names. They're at first glance, I just kind of rolled my eyes because their gimmick looks like it's something straight out of the 80s. You know, like WWE is good for one thing. When you see a person of color, they're gonna Google the stereotype and they're gonna slap it into your gimmick, and that's what it looks like here. But we'll see what that looks like. But these 2 guys are big and nasty. They beat the shit out of. They tried to beat the shit out of Riddle. It didn't look great. But Malcolm Bivens on the mic on TV, I'm here for it. I wish he could be someone who's like a heel manager for like a team like Riddle and Keith Lee, or like a heel version like Keith Lee, or someone like Bobby Lashley. Like that's who he could be working with. Yes, and I did say all the black wrestlers because they always seem like they are the ones who don't get mic time or don't get quality mic time, or give it to Bivens and he can shine. But I think that would have been fantastic there. But again, you know, it's not what we're getting. Triple H comes out. They do the segment with Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, and they're going to get have a one-on-one match in an empty location. Then we get a Killer Cross promo to end the show. You know, this was good. I like to see Triple H kind of like standing over them, not talking down to them, but letting them know that this is it. You know, you 2 guys aren't doing this shit anymore after this. So I'm interested in seeing how that match goes down and what happens there. The inclusion of Cross's promo here makes me think that he's going to be involved in this match, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that because this is supposed to be a end all be all, but you know, I'm not the booker in the back room, so let's see what happens with that. So now I'm going to segue over to topic number 3 for tonight and talk about Dark Side of the Ring, which is the 2-part documentary I referenced about Chris Jericho. So as I said, this is must watch content for wrestling fans. This was 2007 when it happened. What date was that? I wrote down the date. Was it June something? Let me see. Hold on one second. The day Chris Benoit murdered his family was June 25th, 2007. So I was working at ESPN at the time, and I remember seeing the story because I was at work that night when it came out, and I remember thinking, what the hell's going on? And at first, you know, talking about it with my colleagues there who watch wrestling, we were all like, this sounds like a mob hit of some sort. So we talked about it, we laughed about it, and not, well, you know, laughed about it a little bit, was like, what the hell's going on? We thought we would find out more. Then, you know, we know how this really evolved from there. But we're going to talk about the documentary before anything else. And this documentary is powerful, man. It's powerful. So powerful. Chris Jericho was involved, David Benoit, Jim Ross, Dean Malenko, Chavo Guerrero, Vicky Guerrero, Nancy Benoit's sister, which I think was perfect, Dean Malenko's wife, the officer that responded to the call. All these people were sit-down interviews with Vice, who did the documentary, and I don't think it could have been done any better. Chavo Guerrero has producer credits on it, so they focused the first part of it focused on Chris the wrestler, and as the wrestler, Chris is one of the best in the ring. He's one of the best of all times. And he continued to show that. And this part of the documentary really kind of leaned on that and talked about how fantastic he is, how what his journey to WWE was like. They really highlighted his relationship with Eddie Guerrero, and there's a couple of quotes that I wanted to read that really stood out. All of them were Chris Jericho's, and during the first segment, the most powerful quote I took from that was that Chris and Eddie basically gave their lives for pro wrestling, which is exactly what happened there. As we all know, Eddie and Chris were extremely close. Eddie died first, and a lot of people think that that's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. They brought out a lot of footage for Chris Jericho in his matches, and I haven't watched a lot of Chris Jericho footage, Chris Benoit footage since or before this. I watched probably his match against Kurt Angle. I think that's really the only one I remember watching. But man, he was good. He was so fucking good in the ring, and you almost kind of forget how fantastic he was. And that's really what the tone was of the first piece of the documentary. But the second piece of it completely flips. And the tone changes to be more about the crime and the reactions to the crime and the outrage of the crime and the ramifications of it. And there was such intensity in the second piece, in the second part of the documentary, that that's what I want people to see the most. It was interesting watching the wrestlers express how they admired Benoit as a wrestler, as a colleague in the ring, but they hate him for what he did. Like Dean Malenko made it clear that he doesn't forgive him. Chris Jericho almost blatantly said that. Jim Ross flat out said that Chris Benoit doesn't belong anywhere near the Hall of Fame, and I don't disagree with him at all. They go into the Monday Night Raw tribute that they did right after he died, and how it was in bad taste after the fact, because when they did it, they didn't know that he was a murderer that killed his family. They thought something else had happened, but they did that. They did that big tribute for him, and looking back at that, it was horrible. And you had to see what Vince McMahon had to say after that. And I loved Chris Jericho pointing out William Regal's comments, because at the time you don't know, you don't recognize it. But everyone else is up there talking about how much they love Chris Benoit, how much they're going to miss him, etc., how much he was a loving family man, etc., etc. Chris Jericho points out that Regal's comments were different, and they were different in a way of a man who knew something. And he points out and says Regal and Benoit lived in the same neighborhood, in the same town, so he knew a lot about the issues that him and his wife were having. So I mean, this is 13 years ago, and I've never heard anyone point that out. And Chris Jericho pointing that out was fantastic. They even bring in Chris Nowinski, the former wrestler who is now running, I think, a nonprofit that helps deal with CTE and CTE studies. They brought him in to talk about that, and he talks about how he had talked to Chris Benoit about CTE and about how many concussions he may have had, et cetera, et cetera. So they bring up that. They bring up the wellness policy. Another big quote from Jericho in this documentary was, "I think Benoit's fate was sealed the day that Eddie died. He didn't deal with that well." Another one was, "He almost destroyed the only thing he ever loved, that thing being pro wrestling." This documentary is fucking powerful. And again, I believe it's something that must be watched by wrestling fans. And they also, Jericho had a interesting conversation at the end where he's saying, of course, Benoit can't go into the Hall of Fame, but can Nancy Benoit? And he's like, well, you can't use Nancy Benoit. You can't use that name, but you got to call her woman. Like that's who she was known as in WCW when she was with Kevin Sullivan. And I think that's the only way you get her in. She was a major player when they had valets in professional wrestling, and that's what she was known for. She was the first big valet of the industry, and I think, man, that's the way you get her in. I think she does deserve to get in. I don't know if they'll do it. I doubt they'll do it, but I understand why, because you just can't have you can't have that conversation without having that conversation. And I don't think you can recognize her career without recognizing what occurred at the end. I think that's a little bit too difficult for the WWE to be able to tackle. But overall, this was some fantastic content, and it makes me more interested in what Vice will be covering in the future. They already said the next episode is on New Jack, and if you don't know who New Jack is, that dude was a maniac in the ring. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they talk to about what they say about him. I remember New Jack from ECW days, and I didn't like him because he was so violent, but Jesus Christ, he was violent as hell, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he is portrayed, and I am going to go back and watch as much of their Dark Side of the Ring content as I possibly can on their YouTube channels. But that is it for episode 52 of the of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Again, my name is Raphael. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. You can find me at rgarcia_sports. You can check out MMA Ratings on Instagram and Twitter at MMA RatingsNet. You can also go over to MMAratings.net to let us know how interested you are in the fights and rate the fights and let us know what you think about that. You can find all of our podcast content on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and YouTube at MMA Ratings. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our content there. Share it as you can. And be safe out here, people. Social distance. Stay home. You don't need to go anywhere. Let's beat this together by staying the fuck in the house. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, we can get this done before our spring and summer is gone, but we'll be back here next week to talk more professional wrestling. I'm going to be looking at doing some stuff, while we're in the house and there's not so much content going on. Looking back at old matches, so I'm kind of doing some retrospectives on those two and maybe doing some interviews as well. I'm kind of working my way through that. I know I've been talking about that a lot. I just haven't had the time to. But yeah, stay tuned. Thank you for listening to this content, and please have a safe and great weekend.